Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch affairs.
It's probably the least sexy part of the work, and I don't okay. No. The truth is,
Imagine spending your life as an athlete, pushing your body to its limits, competing at the highest levels, and feeling unstoppable. Now, imagine being told that same body is broken, not just injured, but permanently damaged. Doctors telling you that chronic pain will be your new normal, that fibromyalgia and degenerative arthritis are conditions you'll simply have to live with, that by the time you hit 50, you should prepare for 4 joint replacements. For most people, that kind of diagnosis would mean the end of an athletic life. But today's guest refused to accept that ending. After a decade of excruciating chronic pain and hearing over and over again that nothing could be done, he made a decision, not just to find a way out for himself, but to figure it out for the millions of people suffering from chronic pain. And what happened next sounds almost unbelievable. Instead of preparing for joint replacements, he became a 2-time USA Track and Field's Masters National Champion, an All-American sprinter, and world-ranked athlete. Now he's on a mission to help others rewrite the story that have been told about pain and healing. And I'm going to tell you people right now, we were talking in the green room before I hit record, and I've learned so much already, and you are going to learn a lot. And I know a lot of people out there, a lot of my friends have fibromyalgia, lupus, chronic pain at the wazoo. Guys that I served with, can't even mention I can mention it, but I don't even know how many different hip replacements and everything else. So today we're talking with Daniel Esposito, creator of the Undo Method, about resilience, the science of healing, and why a life defined by chronic pain may not be the life you actually have to live. And he is living proof that you don't have to. How's it going, Dan?
I'm great, man. Great to be here. Great to talk to you. I'm excited. We had a great vibe going in the green room, so can't wait to talk some more.
The stuff you were telling me, it was just, it blew me away.
Yeah.
But I want to go back. I want to go back to the moment when the doctors told you your body was basically breaking down.
Yeah.
And that you likely needed four joint replacements by the time you turned 50.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you heard that?
Yeah. So it was kind of a slow roll into it. As you kind of age, you think that a lot of this inability to recover is due to aging. And some of it is, but it's mainly due to foods and not being hydrated and, it's just lifestyle choices. But the first time that I dealt with something, so previous to the chronic pain, you have football things that happen. Right. So I've had 13 surgeries, right?
Jesus.
And so a bunch of them were scopes, though. A couple were needed. I broke my jaw twice. My first play in the NFL was a broken jaw. Broke it in 2 places in Arrowhead Stadium. And
nice.
I played the whole
nice, but not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I played the whole game, though, right? I played it, it happened on the first kickoff of the second half and broke it then, didn't fall down. It broke in 2 places, didn't tell the coaches till the very end of the game because, I'm a kid from Millersville University in Pennsylvania who played 1 year of high school football. So it wasn't like,
wow,
I wasn't the, Saquon Barkley coming out of college. And so I'm not saying anything if I'm feeling dings and, my stepfather being a Marine, you don't complain about stuff like, yeah. So, and he was a prick, to be honest with you. So, but, and so, but I've forgiven him, honestly. I say that sort of jokingly, but, and so, I doing the surgeries and stuff like that and, scopes, and you just think that's the way it is, because if it wasn't, they would have a better solution for you. Right. It's like, you trust your doctors and surgeons, and, surgeons like to make money. And I think a lot of doctors go into it with really good intentions. But I think guys who want to be surgeons are like, I see the big money and I'm going in that direction. So the first thing was like my left elbow was starting to really tighten up and tense up. And I was like talking to the surgeon about it. He goes, yeah, it's just from wear and tear. And that doesn't, what does that even mean? I'm like, but I'm right-handed. So I'm using this one way more. Why isn't there any wear and tear on this side? So it's actually from sitting around too much. Like that's
Leaning
why you become stiff. It's not from wear and tear. Wear and tear. I mean, just movement is great in general, right?
Yeah.
So, and then this is when YouTube was very young. I mean, it was a bunch of years ago, but somebody told me about a chiropractor who had these release techniques. And I was like, let me just try that. And it went away. I was like, okay. So now I'm like really rethinking these surgeons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the orthopedic surgeon at Rothman, he basically told me that my muscles were tangled. Right. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, that's not even real. Right. And so, but then, he also, so when he said I had degenerative arthritis, I'm like, all right, I know that my bones aren't degenerating. Like, what is degenerative arthritis? Because I was still strong. I just was, everything was painful. I had no mobility, but I was like, there's no way that I'm degenerating. You know what I mean? So it just didn't make sense. And then when I was told I had fibromyalgia, that diagnosis came from my chiropractor. And they said I was the tightest person they've ever come across. Like they've never seen anyone so tight. And, I had asked them things about, trying to release a certain muscle. And it's like, oh, you can't release that muscle. And then you're like, okay, gosh. And it's really, they think you can't because their technique can't, because your muscles get glued together by so much collagen and, cell tissue death. And then the fibrosis in there binds it all together. So they can't mechanically break that up because the bonds of collagen are 7 times stronger than steel. Right. So you need and then fibrin, the clot from the inflammation, that's it's like a bungee cord and plastic all together. Right. So if you're ever stretched and you felt like you've done something and the next day you're right back where you wanted, where you were the day before, that's because it's like a bungee cord, but it's also like a plastic water bottle, right? It bends and it stiffens under pressure, but it cracks. So that cracking you hear, it's not your joints, right? It's that viscoelastic polymer of a fibrin collagen mesh. So that's hard to break as well. So you need a catalyst to cleave the chemical bond in the same way WD-40 works on rust, right? And then that breaks these insoluble proteins and scar tissue, which are really scabs, and collagen. It cleaves it. So now the body can now start. Basically, it's like sandpaper, right? It's not like it's going to fall off like an iceberg. That initial crack of the bond, of the cleave of the bond, you feel that, you hear that, right? It sounds like a hollow crack.
Right.
And then the body goes and then very slowly starts breaking it down because you can't overwhelm, your interstitium and the lymphatic system with too much junk. So it's just taken what it can with the resources that it can. And it slowly over time, things can just start, you're like, oh, wow, what the heck is that? Like, I mean, I'm walking today. It's crazy. Like I have no forward lean in my back anymore. You know what I mean? My shoulders are starting to really sit back, real nice, and, it's all thanks to the applying the practices, food, supplements to the undo method that helps the body. I can't, I want to be careful how what I claim, but it's helping the body do things more efficiently. Right. So, but
wow.
Yeah. So, and so I just, right before my second son was born, this all started when my first son was born. I'd started a new business, I was eating a ton of pizza.
But you're still in the NFL, right?
No.
Oh, you're already out.
This happened way after. My NFL career was very short. It was.
I'm thinking of the broken jaw still.
Yeah. No. This was in like my late 30s or early 40s when all this stuff. So when the doctors were trying to blame it on sports, I was like, no, it's not. Yeah. Like I didn't play that much sports. Like 1 year of high school, right? And you don't hit that hard in high school in the Philadelphia Public League. It's kind of a, wasn't that good. So I played 1 year of high school. I didn't carry the ball much. I was one of the toughest guys out there. So I'm going against kids who were, at the time, like, weren't putting it on me. Right. And so then in college, I didn't start till the third game of my senior season. I was supposed to start as a junior. Right. And then politics of football and scholarships, I was a walk-on, and I was told the day, 2 or 3 days before the first game of my junior season, that I was the starter, and I earned it. Like I love the guy who was, my backfield teammates, but that's my seat, it's like, give me my seat. I earned it. I was, but then the day before the first game, the head coach nullified all the other offensive coaches. And so I was like, okay, so the day of the game, I'm like, all right, I'm third string. Like what happened here? I'm like, whatever. I'm going to get my carries. Right. No carries the first
running
game.
back, right?
Running back. Yeah. Okay. No carries the second game. And then I went to my position coach. I was like, all right, what's going on? He goes, just hang in there, Espo, hang in there. And I'm like, no. You're going to tell me what's going on, or I'm going to leave. I'm not going to play football anymore. I said, I'm just going to walk off. You'll never see me again. And he told me the story of what happened. I was like, all right, you told me, I'm a man of my word. I'm going to be as great a teammate as possible. Mm-hmm. And then, so my senior year comes around, and first game, I get no carries. I was like, what the heck? Like, I'm still the best running back in the backfield. Like, I know, and then second game, we get close to the end of the first half, and I'm still not in. And our running backs were doing poorly in the first game and in this game. So then they put me in, and I think I banged off about 136 yards in the second half. And then the next game, I became the starter, had like 360 something yards, all purpose receiving, running, three touchdowns, 2-point conversion. And then, the scouts started coming around. I was a track guy too, obviously, 10.7. My fastest 40 was a 4.27. Nice. So I could move a little bit, and I'm 215, 6 foot. So, pretty decent. So the scouts see that, and they're like, oh, who is this guy? Then I get signed by the Redskins as a free agent out of college. And then my first game, and that first game that I played against, it's an interesting story. As I was a senior leaving high school, going into college, the gym I went to, the head coach, the guy who owned it was the strength coach for the Jets. It was just a little dinky gym in Northeast Philadelphia. It was just fortunate this guy was here, and he goes, hey, there's a guy in here that plays in the NFL. He needs someone to throw to. Will you throw with this guy? I said, of course I will. About 5 workouts with this guy, and he tells me, you can play in the NFL. Now, this is a kid who's played 1 year of high school football so far. Right. And he's like, you can play in the NFL. And I was like, okay, that's pretty. So I go in with that mentality, but I always knew I was going to play in the NFL since I was in 4th grade. I saw it and I was like, I can do that. I'm going to do that.
That's what you want to do. Yeah.
And so, I'm sure every kid says that, but so, I go through my career. In that first game, I played against him. It was Rich Gannon. He's from Delaware.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just a lot of cool things in my life. Like, I've dated like Miss Delaware, Miss Pennsylvania, Miss Nebraska. Yeah, I've been in movies and, I was just reflecting, and I don't have much to show for it, just stories, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm this great, superstar, but I start looking back on my life, and I've had a pretty Forrest Gumpian kind of existence. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's a good story alone right there, where, Rich Gannon was sitting there and helped you out, and then that's the first game.
I'm still hoping to reconnect with him, because I haven't seen him since, but he was a pivotal part of my life.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you were Redskins and the Saints, right?
Saints, yeah. Here's an interesting story about the Saints and how I know that God's moving me through this direction.
Yeah.
So I'd broken my jaw. They gave me an injury settlement, and I'm, hanging with my girlfriend at the time. And I said, next, the helmet that comes out of this, little gumball machine, because we were getting pizza, comes out, is the team I'm going to play for next. The Saints come out.
Get out
2 weeks later, my agent calls me, and he's like, hey, the Saints want to work you out. Me and my girlfriend, I was in bed at the time. We're just like, I said, the Saints want to work me out. We were just like, what the heck? And remember, I was an atheist, agnostic before this whole time. And obviously not now, but it's just a lot of cool things that I feel like you're going to get the worst chronic pain, because I think you can figure it out to help other people, right? I mean, I played 1 year of high school football. I figured out how to get into the NFL. I started an energy brokerage with no experience, have no idea what even energy was at the time. It became one of the fastest 100 growing companies in Philadelphia 2 years in a row. I've got a lot of those things. It's like, and I just always knew, like, if someone can do it, I can do it. And I think most people should have that mentality.
Yeah.
There's a study that Stanford did that said the most successful people share one thing in common, and that's delusional. They're delusional. They have a delusional belief in what they're going to accomplish. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to get into Undo Me, because everything you were telling me, and like I said, I have friends, a couple friends that have fibromyalgia, and it's like they can never figure out what they can do to help themselves. Yeah. Lupus is another one. I had a buddy I served with.
Both inflammatory diseases. They give them all different names, and they show up as the same thing, slight differences. It's really silly. It's like medicine wants to confuse you. Anything that ends in itis is just inflammation. There's 800 different syndromes or disease, whatever you want to call it, that end in itis. It's all the same thing. And inflammation, it's based on inflammation. Inflammation has a couple stages. It's a cycle that's supposed to heal you, but medicine will tell you it's your body attacking itself, not attacking the invader that's in your body that's starting the inflammation cycle. Right. Okay. And so let me tell you what the inflammation cycle is. We'll start once again at the cell wall, right? Because I think that's really important. Your cell wall is where inflammation starts. Cells make up everything in your body. When a cell gets stressed by an external stressor like a car accident, a slip and fall, a punch, whatever, you're going to have a little bit of inflammation or a lot of inflammation in that area, or widespread, especially when you see people who fall or have skiing accidents or car accidents. That inflammatory response hits your whole body in most cases, right? So that's going to cause the cells to signal the start of the inflammation cycle. And your cells must be made of a 1-to-1 ratio, no more than 4-to-1 of omega-6 to omega-3. The omega-6 is like an over responder to inflammation. The omega-3 is a mediated response to inflammation. And this isn't like scientific. I'm just trying to make it, digestible by who's listening, right? So think of the omega-6 as like somebody who's a little bit nuts, doesn't have much experience, and here's a bump in the night. And then they call in the National Guard. The omega-3 is Master Gunnery Sergeant Gus Johnson, right? So who's just going to kind of like go see what's going on and handle it, right? The average American has a 15-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio because of all the seed oils, manufactured foods, restaurant foods, cooking themselves at home in seed oils. Even the meat of the chicken we get from the store is, because they're fed grain and corn, doesn't matter if it's organic or not, becomes linoleic acid in 30% of their tissue, and that's dosed with high amounts of omega-6. Wow. Now, you can still eat that chicken from the store if you want, because it's not the overwhelming majority. The overwhelming majority is your seed oils. So if you're really like aware of removing seed oils from your diet and then supplementing back with your omega-3s, eating a lot of salmon with the skin, you're going to start rebuilding that membrane to a better ratio, and you'll notice your inflammation response is lower, like all that noise. And neuroinflammation is the same thing, right? Your cells in your brain are going to respond the same way. So if you have a stressor, a stressful thought, right, that will create inflammation. Whatever, somebody just talking too loudly and you're processing it in your brain, that's going to create inflammation. And so you have this neuroinflammation going on. And of course, doctors are going to want to point in 72 different directions, except at the base of humanity, which is your cell. So yeah.
Wow. All right. So,
let me tell you about the rest of the inflammation. So I got to start talking. I forget about stuff, right?
You're fine.
So then what happens is there's a cytokine release, right? The cytokines are, then they see reactive proteins. They're basically targeting the invader for the white blood cells to destroy. So the cytokine response can create anxiety and, all sorts of other problems. So a substance called PEA, which is something I put in my supplement, mitigates that cytokine release. So as you're rebuilding that cell wall, a good way to mitigate that cytokine release that's going to alert the rest of the inflammatory responses with a supplement called PEA, or you just get it from, flexibility fuel. It's in there. Then the glue happens, right? That becomes the clot. That's a fibrin. So fibrin, fibrosis, fibromyalgia, right? And so, but there's other things happening at the same time. So it's not just the fibrin, but it's basically because of the inflammation. So then the white blood cells come, eat up all the garbage, give it off as lymph. That's why you'll see swelling. Right? So if you are real puffy, a good way to reduce that swelling is rubbing castor oil on your body. It will break down the lymph and let the lymph nodes work more quickly. If you look on my Instagram, which is Undo Method with UNDU, you'll see a picture of me with a face about this big. A friend of mine, because I was so swollen and my knees.
For those of you listening, he like
very
about the size of a basketball.
Oh yeah. I thought you meant now. Yeah. I mean, I look like a pumpkin face. Like it's it's pretty. So, and I was like, what's going on with me, man? Like I was always ripped, right? Like both my sons are like pretty ripped. Like my whole family, my brother was like a model in Miami, like no body fat. And so, but I had all this puffiness, and it was coming from the constant inflammation. So, friend of mine were, at a networking event, and she goes, what's going on? My knees were gigantic, both of them, for 8 months. Damn. I couldn't get the swelling down because I was limping. And then she goes, well, why don't you rub some castor oil on your knees? And I looked at her like she was a witch. I'm like,
I never heard that.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, to be honest with you. Yeah, so it gets into the bloodstream and just starts eating up the lymph, the problems in the lymph areas. The next day, I put it on about a shot glass worth. I heated it up on my stove. I don't use a microwave, and then waited till it was warm, not hot. Applied it to my knees, my underarm pits, my groin area where the lymph nodes are. The next day I went to sleep, and then the next day I woke up. I had no swelling in my knees. Most of the swelling in my body was gone, and I started draining stuff out of my face for the next 3 days. It just, because when you have constant inflammation, you have constant lymphatic lymph going on. But the other thing is because of those cytokines, it basically tells your thyroid to shut down and underproduce. So now women who are in constant inflammation, they go to the doctor, they look at their thyroid to test that, and it's not putting out what it's supposed to put out. So instead of saying, hey, you need to shut down the inflammation, they start giving you a drug for your thyroid, right? And it's just like, that's not what we're trying to do here. So anyway, so all that happens. The white blood cells go away after all the invaders are destroyed. Hopefully they do. And, some cases it's constant. You got to find out what's causing inflammation. And then the white blood cells come back in that area, or the red blood cells come back in that area. They carry oxygen and the ability to create electrical charges. So without that red blood in the cell, in the muscles, you're going to atrophy. So so your body, as younger people, is constantly kind of trying to eat that stuff up. But as we get older, we have less and less of those resources. And when we're constantly feeding ourselves, those resources are tied up in digesting our food. That's why this eat 5 meals a day thing, I think, was an intentional way to slow people's healing process down. You should be eating once or twice a day. Right?
What?
And yeah. You should be eating once or twice a day, because now what's supposed to happen is at about 20 hours of fasting, when your body says, hey, I haven't eaten in a while, you get a big rush of those enzymes from your liver that are now scouring the body for the fibrin that is insoluble. It's insoluble until that enzyme cleaves it. Now it's soluble. Right. And then so the other thing that happens in every inflammation response is you get a collagen response to act like scaffolding in that area. Right. But that collagen has to be created with lysine, glycine, proline, hydroxyproline. Most of us are going to get that if we're eating meat, bone broth, things like that. But then there's 4 cofactors that give the instructions to the amino acids to do their job properly. Or it becomes either unstable or like glue. And that's vitamin C every day, right?
Okay.
Every day. Copper
Copper.
Almost every day. It's essential not only for your collagen, but for your elastin, which provides that snapback, right?
How do you find copper?
Exactly. Right here on my wrist. So I have a copper bracelet.
Okay.
I have a copper water bottle, and it's in liver. But I have a spreadsheet for anyone who signs up to my community. It's free community. Mm-hmm. And one of the free resources in there is a spreadsheet of the 4 essential categories of food. Nutrients, right? And it has all the nutrients listed, and it tells you which food sources in each category are the highest bioavailable amount of that nutrient. Then you have your essential amino acids, which I have almost 100% of in flexibility fuel. So if you're buying something like Perfect Aminos, it's cheaper than Perfect Aminos, and Perfect Aminos does not list the amount of essential amino acids in their thing, and they're missing one of them, right? And it's a much more expensive product than mine. And then you have your essential fats and your essential minerals. So the spreadsheet basically breaks down each category of food: meat and chicken, beef basically, and chicken, fish, shellfish for those who are kosher, nuts, legumes. I think there's one other category, and then it tells you how much of the RDA you're hitting with this amount of this food. So I call it the world's greatest shopping list. You'll realize after looking at that we are all massively deficient in just the essentials that we need. And there's only 4 categories of it. So, it's imperative for a lot of people to supplement with those things to get what the body needs to make all the other stuff that the body needs.
How can people get the spreadsheet?
Yeah. So it's, if you go, I think the easiest place to go is my LinkedIn bio. It's linkin.bio/undo method. Then that's kind of the traffic director. UNDU. It's like Hindu, because there's a lot of Eastern European philosophies in my practice when you start looking at earthing and nasal breathing and meditation. And I just thought it was a cool play on name.
I love that.
Yeah. So
I want to go back a minute because you mentioned seed oils.
Mm-hmm.
So let me get this straight. So seed oils aren't good for you?
If they're if they're high in omega-6s, right? Which most of them are. So most people think avocado is a seed oil, but avocado is really a fruit. So it's not like a vegetable oil. So if you're getting I think avocado's less, but there's some smoke point issues with that. I don't use avocado oil. I use olive oil. But then again, olive oil, if you're not getting the expensive stuff, the trade is run by the mafia. Right. So they're cutting it with the vegetable oils, and you really have, a lot of vegetable oils. But I really think, honestly, butter, ghee, and tallow. And I really go with the butter and the ghee.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're way better for you. They contain stearic acid, which is actually, stearic acid creates fat loss. That's why you get meat sweats when you eat so much meat, because it's creating thermogenesis inside the body and heating you up. Where linoleic acid, which is from the vegetable oils, there's studies that show that it disallows fat cells from dividing. And then it's causing oxidative stress and inflammation and all that other, the cell wall problem. But in all our manufactured foods and breads and stuff, you'll see seed oils, which disallow the fat cells from dividing, and folic acid, which drives lipids into cells. So in these health food things that they're putting in all of our manufactured foods is actually making us fatter. So no matter what the calorie content.
Okay, so in other words, I need to get rid of my flaxseed oil and grapeseed oil.
Yeah.
And just stick with good, pure
olive and especially oil. When you heat that up, you're really, when you're cooking with it, and the way they produce it, they bleach it, they put all these additives in it. Crisco started out as submarine lubricant for the submarine engines, and they tried to make it into soap, and then they said they couldn't make it into soap because people were making their own soap back then. And they said, why don't we just feed it to them? So you're like, okay, it's not a good idea.
Well, and the reason I ask is because I love salmon. And you're right. Got to have the skin on there.
Now you're in Maryland, so hopefully, I guess there's no Eastern salmon. There's only comes from the West Coast. So are you getting it from the store? Is it farm raised?
No, I will not buy anything. Okay. The only thing I get that's farm raised will be oysters.
Okay.
because here in the Chesapeake Bay, there's a lot. Well, I mean,
Yeah. We're right
you
here.
can't beat the oysters.
Yeah.
But no, that's when I go to the grocery store, and those of you listening, this is important. A couple of things I always look at. If it's farm raised, I don't want it. If it's because that usually means it's also got the artificial coloring and all that.
You should look at videos of like farms, and then it'll just completely turn you off from it. Yeah. So,
and if it's previously frozen, which is something they have to say now, I don't buy because you can't freeze it again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you're looking at fish that was previously frozen, you don't want to freeze it again. You want to cook it right away.
Okay.
Yeah, it just.
Well, I get all my stuff is delivered from Wild Alaska, and then I get all my meats delivered from Wild Pastures. I get my raw milk and eggs delivered from a local farm here, and yeah.
All right, explain what raw milk and eggs are.
So, they're two
Not
separate
raw
things.
Eggs, okay.
Yeah. So raw milk is just unpasteurized, unprocessed milk. It's, when you pasteurize, it's heat pasteurization, which I think that one is what kills all the enzymes. That's why people are lactose intolerant, because it's missing the enzymes that helps digest the milk. Right. And then it's lacking. Oh, what's the other? Pasteurization. I think that's the one that gets rid of all the nutrients.
Okay.
So you're just drinking white water for the most part. That's going to make you stuffed up, So when you drink raw milk, most people have no conceptualization of it because they think it's gooey. Like I would say it's like regular milk and an ice cream mix.
Okay.
It's like a thicker, tasty, like when people drink, I make every new person who comes to my house drink raw milk. I'm like, you're going to drink this. And they're like, oh my God. Like it's just hits you. And you're like, that is really good. And then the eggs, I get the, just farm raised eggs from chickens. It's Amish from an Amish, farm out here.
So raw milk, what about for somebody that's lactose intolerant?
I think it's worth a try. And a lot of times they say that the lactose intolerant is actually intolerance to the A1 protein in the milk. So there's A2 protein from store milks, but that's from those Brahma cows. You know what I mean? Like those Indian cows have the A2 protein, and people who have been diagnosed with lactose intolerance, and that's mainly just a guess by your doctor. Right. Just you don't know.
Oh, you get more than one opinion.
Yeah. They're all trained the same way.
Well, yeah.
So it could just be that milk, or something else that you're doing in conjunction with your milk might be causing stomach discomfort, or you just have poor, leaky gut that's, causing some issues. So it could be a lot of different things, but I don't, then there's the listeria thing, right? So there was just another listeria outbreak for
not too long ago,
processed meats, right? But but the raw milk, you find like a handful of them, maybe a year, of just a few people getting listeria from it. But
so probably a good reason for people to support their local farms.
Oh, not just that. It's so much healthier for you. Your relationship with food should be like your relationship with your pet or your dog. I mean, your kid. It's like it should be a loving, kind relationship that you are loving yourself enough to prepare food that is going to serve you. Right. And I'm not, like I said before, I'm not perfect. I mean, I got a 5-hour energy next to me right now. And,
but you've been learning all this stuff. I mean,
what's that?
But you've been learning all this stuff, and you've been doing deep research on this.
I lost 10 years of my life to chronic pain. So, losing movement, I didn't really identify as like a football player or anything. I was just good at movement, and I was strong, right? So I played baseball growing up. I liked to skateboard, freestyle bikes. I was doing everything. And then when my football career was over and I was working, and now it's time to go out to the nightclubs and, explore that world, dancing was my superpower. I didn't even need to talk to girls. It was, I was pretty good. And so I lost both my superpowers, or my main superpower, ability to play sports. But then, when I got all these diagnoses and my second son was about to be born, he was like 3 months away. I was just like, I was not the greatest father all the time to my first kid.
Okay.
I intended to be, but you are so anxious and on edge all the time that you just kind of show up not that great. And so when the second son was born and his mom is, she's 20 years younger than me, I was like, she's not going to stay with me. I'm not going to be a good dad. I'm not useful. I don't have like the greatest personality. Someone's going to stay with me if I can't, reach the high shelf or help paint the house or pick up after myself. I mean, even tying my shoes, stopping,
it was hard.
Sleeping, everything was like my body was on fire internally, and it was coming out as anxiety and anger, and like, even if I would tell myself, chill out, dude.
Yeah.
It's like fight or flight is fight or flight. You have a really tough time managing that when it gets at a certain level.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. I've got to tell you about something that's seriously impressive. My good friend Chris recently tried M-Sculpt Neo at Living Well Healthcare in Elkton, and the results, absolutely incredible. I'm talking visible muscle tone and fat reduction, all without stepping foot into a gym. M-Sculpt Neo is a non-invasive body contouring treatment that builds muscle and burns fat at the same time. It uses advanced technology to give you the equivalent of 20,000 crunches or squats in one session. You heard me right, 20,000. Living Well Healthcare in Elkton isn't just another wellness center. It's run by Dr. William Clifford, who's been helping people feel and move better for decades. If you're tired of working out without seeing results, or just want a kickstart to your fitness goals, this is the move. Check them out at livingwellhealthcareelkton.com. Again, that's livingwellhealthcareelkton.com. And tell them Rich and Chris sent you. So when did you decide to make a change and look into everything and actually create the undo method? And even and correct me if I'm wrong, but you created the flexibility fuel as well, right?
I did. Yeah. It's my own formulation. Yeah. So, it was, over time. So the first thing I did when I wanted to start getting healthy, and this is before I had so much chronic pain, the stiffness was really starting to come, but the lymphatic problem was there. And that's because when I started my energy brokers, I was eating like 3 times a week. I'd have Domino's pizza, buy one, get one free. And I'd eat it myself, right? Because I was like so intent on figuring this business out and, making money. I had a kid on the way. Like things were coming at me. And so, but then I went to Netflix to like figure out some health advice and saw some juicing videos. And that's when we talked about, juicing
on
spinach.
Netflix.
Well, they got all these documentaries and people claim to, have, the cure for everything. And so one of them was like, oh, well, spinach is a superfood and beets are superfoods. And, I didn't, what defines something as a superfood? I didn't even how'd you come up with that name? It's the only superfood is meat and liver. That's the only superfood that delivers the most amount of bioavailable nutrients to your body, stuff your body can actually utilize.
Pure meat and liver, not processed.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, meat, not processed meats like bologna and, hamburgers from McDonald's.
I bring this up because, I thought I could have sworn, and I wish I had, the source, but I remember reading something about certain meats from the grocery store can be mixed with meats from other different places.
I don't buy my meat at a grocery store. Yeah, I don't buy my meat at a grocery store. So I should look into that and see, because that's I'm curious about that.
Yeah, and I heard that you're better off getting it from the local farm.
Oh,
and grocery stores will also I don't know if it's done I doubt it's done at the grocery store, but wherever you get your meat, sometimes it's like almost like the fish injected with dyes or whatever to keep that bright red finish on it. So
Vitality Farms, where I used to get my eggs from, so I decided to not do that anymore, says pasture raised. Turns out they're not pasture raised. And when you'd crack it open, you'd see the yellow yolk and you're like the really bright yellow and you're like, okay, well, this is a healthy chicken. They put dye into their feed to make the yolk yellow.
Really?
Yeah. So, when you go to the supermarket, you don't really know what you're going to get. And if you really take some time to look around the supermarket, in my Giant, where I live, there is one small, almost like I could walk around the streets with this table of fruit and vegetables that are organic. The rest of the supermarket is definitely sprayed in glyphosate, is definitely, manufactured foods for the majority of what's going on. And, we talked about that folic acid. Folic acid at high dosages acts like a neurotoxin in the brain. And so they spray it on all the manufactured foods. They call it enrich it, but they're poisoning it with this folic acid that if you're a parent and you send your kid to school in the morning with a Flintstone chewable vitamin, they're a third of the way to the upper limit. Now you've given them a bowl of cereal or a muffin or whatever, a snack bar, probably about halfway to not the safe limit, toward the upper limit. Then they have a slice of pizza at school. They're going to get to about 3/4 of the way there. They come home and have a bowl of spaghetti or so and a snack. They're at or right around or over the upper limit. Now that folic acid is going to stay in your system for a few days. So now the next day you do that again. And now you've put even more on top of that and more on top of that. And what folic acid is said to do is create an enzyme in the same way folate does that manages histamine, right? And so if you're putting off too much histamine, it's putting you in fight or flight. You'll call it ADD with your kid at school, right? But it's really, he's not managing histamine. So people with mast cell activation syndrome, other, sorts of diseases, if you've got this high histamine response all the time, it's a really good thing to AI. Like, what does high histamine cause in the body? And then you have anxiety all the time. So now we have this very anxious and depressed population, especially with kids, but histamine anxiety becomes homocysteine if it's not converted. And then that homocysteine is linked to depression, right? Like massively linked to depression. Okay. Now, homocysteine is supposed to convert to methionine, which regulates your dopamine, your reward center. You must have B12 in your body for those genes to work. B12 is not in anything but meat. Right. So vegetarians, eventually that homocysteine is going to build up and they'll get a diagnosis of high homocysteine or something like that. Right. It creates pressure behind the eyes. It causes vision problems. And then I believe it's homocysteine that becomes ammonia if it's not processed through. So now you have ammonia running through your brain and your body. Shit. Right. And that's why I think a lot of women get postpartum, because those pills got a lot of folic acid in them. Right. Then when they come off of them, now they've got depression because all the other things aren't supporting it. And you've blocked, the ability for folate to do its job, because the folic acid is sitting on the folate receptors, blocking folate. So even if you're doing a lot of folic acid and you're like, well, I'm also eating a lot of spinach, it's too bad. It's that receptor is already occupied by folic acid. And half of the population can't convert folic acid into the enzyme that's supposed to manage this. So you talk about people who have PTSD and anxiety and stuff like that. It's like, let's reset your trigger over here. You still need to do some work, but your trigger's been moved so close to your thinking that you're not able to pause and just kind of say, I'm okay. And, whatever your reaction has been set over here because your histamine response is so exaggerated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. All right, so with the formula, and what is that, a powder?
Mine is a powder. Yeah. So let's kind of go through the evolution of the things. I once again, I got off on a tangent. Okay. So, decided I was going to fix it. My friend said something to me, was able to get rid of that, lymph that was going on. Mm-hmm. And then a few months later, when my son was about 7 months old, I went to a Phillies game with some friends and, his mom, and I had a beer or two and I felt so much worse. Now, after the, lymphatic drainage, my bad head days went from 28 a month to about 15 a month, where I just couldn't focus and it was so foggy.
Wow.
And then, so there was still, stuff to figure out mentally. And then I had that beer and it put me into that place. And I was like, maybe I'm acidic. And then I started looking at water and I realized all the water I'm drinking has no mineral content. It's purified, right? And it's basically, you don't want to have acidity, too much acidity in your body. And so I don't know if I was scientifically sound, but I went and got some really good high pH water,
right?
Which, there's some debate there. And, I who knows why this worked for me? Maybe just the hydration itself. It cleared my head up almost immediately. And I was like, maybe I'm dehydrated. So I looked at a podcast with Dr. Zach Bush and Dr. Mercola talking about proper hydration. And they said proper hydration is at the cellular level, meaning good water needs to come into the cell to make it function properly, right? So a lot of us aren't getting good water into our cells. Cells make up everything. And I thought, well, if cells make up everything, if I just make my cells healthier, is that going to improve some things? So the next thing I did was red light therapy, because it's supposed to increase the mitochondria function and, do some other things. But what it also does, that I found out much later, because at this point, I'm just throwing darts blindfolded. Right. What it actually does is that range of that wavelength of light penetrates deeper into the tissue and can affect the chemical bonds of the fibrosis by cleaving them. So that's when they're spraying all the stuff over our head. Our healing ability is so limited because if you look, you don't see the reds. They're blocking the reds from the light. So it's causing us to not heal. And so a near range infrared light and like a sun lamp are really, I have both of them. I think it's especially for people up here in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic. And so I was like, I would walk out of that session and I'd hear a click. Like a hollow sounding, like a tubular, whatever, like this little tubes, like a little, where you crack, like glass tubes. And then I'd feel relief in that part of the muscle. I was like, ooh, something happened, just tiny little things. I was like, okay, this is working. And every time I did it, it'd be like one or two clicks and one or two little pieces of relief. I was like, okay, something's happening. Like, okay, I'm just falling forward without making mistakes at this. Like everything I did, I've made one big mistake and we'll talk about that. But, and then, so I bought a near range infrared light and I sleep under it every single night. And my chihuahuas will get under it. They love it. And then the next thing I did was a fast. And so I started fasting and I told my friend I was fasting and she goes, well, you should try a 3-day fast. This snake diet guy does 3-day fasts. I was like, okay, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to do it. He's a whack job. Right. He's amazing. I love the guy. You should Google him. Snake juice diet. He's Canadian. Every one of his videos starts with, hey, fatty. And you're like, oh, well, that's me. Let me get the time. So anyway, he had this 3-day fast. And so I did the 3-day fast, but at like day 2, click, 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 click. My back starts unwinding. Like things just start clicking. And I thought that was from something else, but later find out it's that enzymatic release. They're going in like Pac-Man, eating up some of the fibrosis. So it allows the body to remove it. So I was like, okay, well, that's working. And so I just got done a 4-day fast the other day. It's one of the best things you do. And then so I'm okay, things are happening, but I was researching probably for 2 years to try to figure out what might have been happening there. And I, finally came across some things and it wasn't it. And a couple of years later, figured out what it was. But this has been like an 8-year journey of studying, and I'm still learning. Like the fat thing with the cells, I just learned that a month or two ago, because I was curious, like, okay, well, here's this other essential. How does a lack of it contribute to chronic pain? And then AI starts taking you down these really good, pathways and you really learn a lot. But so, and then a friend, this is the mistake. This is the huge cautionary tale. So another friend of mine, she goes, have you tried sulfur, like MSM, right? You've heard a lot of people using MSM, chondroitin, stuff like that, and that's sulfur. So what sulfur does is help resynthesize the collagen. So we're all building our collagen without the proper nutrients, right? So it needs to be resynthesized, meaning that you need to break it down and it takes what it can use to build more collagen, gets rid of the junk. I'm highly allergic to sulfur. I did not know this. So for months, maybe years, I was doing Epsom salt baths, increasing sulfur. I was doing sulfur in my supplement, in the concoction I was making. And then also this thing, N-acetylcysteine, which also I do very poorly with. So now COVID's starting. I'm starting to, start with sulfur. Our family's so close together. I'm turning into a maniac. I think it's just because what's going on in the world and the danger and the kids are here all the time. But it turns out I was like poisoning myself with sulfur. Now you can mitigate that with glutathione and CoQ10. Glutathione drip is one of the best things you'll ever do, especially if you do a hyperbaric oxygen therapy right afterwards. It's the most expensive thing to do in my program. Most of everything else is like free. It's like just practices like breathing and earthing and what's the science behind this stuff, right? But acupuncture, glutathione, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy are ways that push you so far forward that you have to implement it into your routine if you're really serious. Like all the other stuff is going to have impact, right? But this has massive impact. Right. Okay. And so I acupuncture myself. I do it a couple times a week. I'm sitting there with needles, just getting in there. And this is why I know what's going on in there. Right. I have
you do it yourself?
Yeah. It's the first thing. So one of the first thing, I think this might have been the first thing I ever did, is I started to try B12 shots because my energy was so bad.
Right.
So I had, I was always a natural athlete, didn't believe in, taking steroids and all that stuff. And so looking at this needle, I'm like, I'm about to put this needle in my butt. You're right. And this is like, I'm like, what's it going to feel like? I don't know. And so I'm like, forget it. I just jab. I hit a super tough piece of muscle. The needle was shaking like crazy. I was like, oh God, what did I do? And then the muscle relaxed, took pressure off my sciatica, and my sciatica pain was gone in one acupuncture needle. So I was like, so then I started going to see an acupuncturist, but it's like $80 a session. Right. And I don't tell people to do this themselves, but I believe you're allowed to be trained by your acupuncturist to do it yourself. Like there's no laws against that. Right. And I'm not telling people they should do it, but it is expensive. But the benefit of me doing it myself is I get to feel what's going on inside of there. Right. And it's like, what's that? Oxalates. Right. And so, that's, just tough tissue. That's definitely some fibrin. You know what I mean? Like you just really start understanding what's going on in there. And as you get in there and you feel the release and you're like, wait a minute, that's all I had to do? You know what I mean? Just put this little tiny needle in this area and now all of a sudden I can bend my arm better. So those are the two things that can get expensive for people in the whole method. But most people aren't trying to be a world-class master sprinter. They're just trying to tie their shoes. You know what I mean? So, so I don't even know where we were, but so sulfur is something, if you're going to try that, and that's why I don't put it in my supplement, although it's one of the things that are massively beneficial physically that I can't do, that probably a lot of other people can do, that can accelerate their response as well. Okay. So, I don't know where we were going there, but it's just the creation of it. Yeah. So I just kept falling forward. And then,
How can people get it?
So once again, you can go to my linkedin.bio/undo method, or just go right to undo.me, which is undu.me. The site is under construction right now. You can still get the supplement, but I'm putting a calendar in there and some other things in there so people can engage with me more. But it will, if you go to my link in bio, it'll take you to to the platform where my program is hosted. But it's really a community that I'm trying to build out of people who are intentional about healing and who are going to stay positive and like not just throw out suggestions. They're going to be like, here's the science behind these. Because if you go on Facebook and go into a fibromyalgia or chronic pain community, a lot of negativity, a lot of people giving bad advice. I've offered so many people to walk through my program for free, or I try to tell them about my supplement, and they tell me I've never had fibromyalgia. I'm a scammer. I'm a liar. And I'm like, I thought I was going to be a hero to these people, like, hey, I've got this thing that's going to really help
There's
your
always
body.
going to be haters, Dan. You know that.
But I get it though in this, as my anxiety went away, because as my pain went away, my responses to those people became more loving.
Yeah.
Before I would kind of fight back, not terribly, but but now I'm like, I get it. I was you. I totally understand what you're going through, blah, blah, whatever. But I did get some guy yesterday from Ireland, 26-year-old guy, a young guy who, I think he's 26, but, so I offer people free reviews of my website. I'm actually doing one. There's a link on my LinkedIn.bio as well. I'm doing a free presentation next Sunday at 4:00, which I don't know if this will be out by then, but if you go there and you're listening to it, I'm going to be doing those probably at least once a month.
Okay.
Just give it for free. Right. And if you've got the ability to screen record, go ahead. Like, I don't care. Right. I want you to heal, but I also think there's some value in it. So I charge $196 for the whole program, every update, as well as you get one free bottle of flexibility fuel. So that's like a $50-something value right there. And then if I had this information back when I first started, we wouldn't be here. Right. I would have just followed. And it would have been years ago. I would have been, in what I would call recovery. Or if you don't have that kind of money or you don't believe in it, it's $13.69 a month. You can get through it in a day.
Right.
Right. Realistically a week, easily a month, and then just cancel it after that. I mean, but it has so much information, education, strategies, the science behind the strategy. It's 100% natural and 100% backed in multiple third-party studies. Like, this information has been out there. I've just aggregated it.
Right.
I'm not a scientist. I'm just some guy that decided to figure it out.
But you're coaching people about it as well.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've got a bunch of former NFL players are taking it.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. I can't wait, because there's a guy, Rocky Cleaver, who, he's a buddy of mine, and he's been taking it, and I called him the other day, and he's like, yeah, man, he's super pumped, and I want to get these guys on video to do like a little review of it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I got a guy. And then once again, this is anecdotal. I don't want to claim that my supplement had anything to do with this, but I got a buddy, Tom. He's been going through surgeries for the last 11 years, all sorts of surgeries, chronic pain type of things. And I think it's all Frankenstein surgeries, to be honest with you, once you really start understanding what the body is. Yeah. But he's been on opioids for that amount of time.
Oh, shit.
He sent me a text message. I could pull it up and show it to you. He sent me a text message that, Dan, I will call you tomorrow, but I want you to know that I'm 4 days off opioids. Thank you so much. And then I called him the next day, and I was like, you just quit cold turkey? I said, any side effects? He's like, a little insomnia, but he says the pain level, just for whatever reason, not saying flexibility fuel has anything to do with it. He said the pain level is the same, but without all the side effects. But what the supplement is designed to do is target the chemical bonds of the things that's actually causing the pain. And then what is pain? Let me just tell you exactly what pain is. Pain is part of your central nervous system. It's these things called nociceptors. They're pain receptors, right? And so medicine will tell you it's a pain processing disorder. It's processing just as God intended. It is something is aggravating that pain receptor constantly. The end of the pain receptor may not have enough myelin on it, which is kind of a protein that keeps it from being so sensitive.
Right.
Benfotiamine, which just happens to be in my supplement, is the precursor to create more of that myelin. Right. So now you've got all these pain receptors all over your body, 7 times more sensitive in your fascia, which is your connective tissue where your movement is, but your joints are also there. You think you have a joint problem. You have a fascia problem that's constantly aggravating these pain receptors. And so when you get in there with an acupuncture needle and break that apart, boom, pain just disappears. It's magical, right? It's pretty crazy. And so, so it's sending a signal to the brain. And then because your brain's only going to hold on to so many pain points at a time, wherever you're aggravating the pain receptors, where you're going to feel it. That's why when I went to get my shoulders looked at, he's like, well, where does it hurt? No, oh, it's right there. No, it's over there. Wait, no, it's over here.
Right.
It's because now your brain's just saying, oh, your signal's coming from here now. It's coming from here now. It's coming from here now. And so that's why pain moves around in the body so much.
One of the things I've always hated is, when they show you this faces, it's like, well, where's your pain level?
Yeah.
It's like, has anybody ever hit the 10 level? I mean,
we're all at 10. Pain is pain. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. So just because I've gotten rid of so much of the fibrosis and scar tissue and oxidative stress doesn't mean I don't still have pain or stiffness in certain places. And you can have one thing of pain left of the 99% that you got rid of. That is still painful. If you stick a knife in your arm and you stick 1,000 knives in your arm, that one knife is still painful. Yeah. It's going to affect you. So, so that's why my training is still compromised. Like, I literally don't train before I go to these events. Like, I'm not.
So you're still running?
Oh, I ran last year. I was, I think, it came over the loudspeaker. I didn't even announce it. It said Dan Esposito and Lane whatever ranked 15th in the world last year, and whatever the heck he said. Wow. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that. And then, but I'm like a 4 or 5 time All-American, which I also didn't realize until somebody brought up this website that you can go to for that. But I knew about my national championships because I was actually running in them. So I got 2 gold medals in 2022 in Kentucky at the national championships there.
All right. So how could people, well, we know about the website, but how could people actually find you? Is there anywhere else besides LinkedIn?
Yeah. I mean, everything else is not LinkedIn though. It's LinkedIn bio. It's a different, it's like one of those little landing pages.
I was testing you, man.
Yeah. So it's linkedin.bio/undo method, but I'm at undo method across all social media platforms. And then, my website is www.undu.me. So very soon there's going to be a calendar there where you can just schedule like, 30 minutes with me, an hour with me. I will stay on with you as long as I need to, as long as I don't have something coming up. You know what I mean? So it's like, even if you paid for 30 minutes, I might stay on with you for 2 hours. Like, to be honest, I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to help people. So that's going to be up on my website very soon. But I would say go to my website, click on the community, join the community. It's going to start filling up soon. I probably did 30 podcasts in the last 45, 50 days. So Bob Marley's nephew reached out to me to do a documentary on fibromyalgia. His name's Charles Maddox. Yeah. And nothing's in stone, but they really want me involved with it. And he's an award-winning documentarian. A lot of reverse this disease type titles.
Man, yeah, I'm gonna have to get you on again because
I'll come on all the time, dude. I love talking about this so much. It's like, I need to find other things to be, as hobbies. So I started getting into F1 and guns, and gonna take my kid karting. But I need other things to talk about.
Started your own podcast yet?
I don't have the time.
Okay,
well, I got 2 kids, 2 baby mamas, 2 chihuahuas, and 2 businesses. So and 2 broken jaws. So.
It definitely does take time. So before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
Don't trust your diagnoses. A lot of them are wrong. Don't let that be your death sentence either. There is so once again, everything that ends in itis is just inflammation. So when people get these diagnoses, and one of them is a new one that's becoming really prevalent, and that's ankylosing spondyle, which means spine, itis, which means inflammation. So stiff inflammation of the spine is basically what it means. It's literally arthritis of the spine, right? It's no different than chronic regional pain syndrome. Is just, it's here, 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 and here, but you missed one point that would say fibromyalgia. So we can't tell you fibromyalgia yet until it starts hurting here, right? They're all guesses by doctors. You can't see this stuff under medical imaging. Right. So they can't see oxidative tissue or poor collagen synthesis or, even fibrosis under medical imaging. So they're really just guessing based on symptoms. And so, use it AI has been such a great tool for me to really get my research. The last 6 months, I've really been jamming with it. Get curious, everything that I say, be curious about it. Don't believe me. go in with a skeptical mind, because that's your, and then be open to change, right?
Yes.
I've gone from political party to no political party at all, right? Because I was open to looking at different sides, and you start looking at things. Oh, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. And then, but you never open to change. So now I don't think politics is, it's all nonsense, but you have to say I'm wrong, right? That's another thing. Like, I want to be right so bad that I need to be wrong, because if I stick with I'm right, I might be wrong. So, yeah.
Well, it's how you learn as well.
Yeah. 100%. So, and it's, people get set in, and they think their doctors are miracle workers, and most of them have been trained on just ways to prescribe and do surgery. And I think a lot of them are really well-intentioned, but like, let's just take a chiropractor real quick. If you're going to a chiropractor to fix this stuff, those collagen bonds are 7 times stronger than steel. That fibrosis is going to bend. He can't break through this stuff. He's going to give you temporary relief. You need a catalyst in there. So that's like, I want to work with chiropractors. At first, when I was all competitive and angry, I'm like, chiropractors don't know what they're doing. I'm like, no, these two things work together really, really well, right? Post-op surgery, right? My stepmom had her knee replaced. 2 weeks later, driving all the flexing back, because she was taking, well, I can't say because she was taking, but she was also taking flexibility fuel. Had nothing to do with her recovery. So, but I got to be careful legally what I say.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. I understand. I mean, it's amazing, because I go to a chiropractor, and it's amazing how much better I feel.
Yeah.
Although I did cut out the green smoothie, but that's another story. That's something.
We'll talk about just the foods and diets on our next conversation.
Yeah.
We'll just focus in on that stuff.
That works for me.
Yeah.
All right. Pick a number between 1 and 5.
3. Always 3.
3. Why always 3?
It's a healing number. 369, keys to the universe.
All right. Now pick a number between 41 and 60.
Ooh, 33. Oh, 41 and 60. We'll go 47. That's my kid's hockey number.
All right. You know what? This is a good question. I have 100 different questions here, and I always like I just did, have you pick the numbers. And it goes with what we've been talking about, because you're trying to build one. What does community mean to you, and how do you foster it?
So that's a question for me?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
That's it. The numbers you just picked, that's what it led to that question.
That's crazy. What is, because I'm trying to build a community. It's it's differences with respect.
Wow. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that works. I don't know. It's the first thing I thought of. Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to thank you so much,
Rich,
man.
Thanks so much, man. I had a great time talking with you.
Oh, so did I. And I learned so much. And
that's why we need the method.
I'm going to hit you up because, so those of you listening, Dan was going to come down here. We were going to record in person. And it's like, man, I don't want you to spend an hour and a half driving down here for this. But now you got me thinking I might have to bring some co-hosts on. I think this could be a good round table.
Bring a doctor on, or somebody with fibromyalgia or something. I would love to sit and talk with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not argumentative. I'm so confident in what I know. Like, if
I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it happen. Dan,
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
One of the things that really stood out to me in this conversation is how easy it is to accept what we're told, especially when it comes from someone in a position of authority. But Dan's story is a reminder that sometimes the diagnosis isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new question. For 10 years, he lived in pain, not just physical pain, but the kind that affects your mindset, your relationships, even how you show up as a parent and as a person. And like so many people out there, he was told there was no real solution, just something he'd have to live with. And thank God he didn't accept that. He got curious. He questioned things. He kept searching, even when it didn't make sense, even when it was frustrating, even when it felt like he was just throwing darts in the dark. And eventually, those small discoveries added up to something life-changing. Not just for him, but for the people he's now helping. So if you're listening right now and you're dealing with chronic pain, or honestly anything in your life where you feel stuck, I think the biggest takeaway from this conversation is this: don't lose hope. Be willing to question. Be willing to learn. And most importantly, be willing to believe that things can change, even when everything around you says they can't. Dan, I want to thank you, brother. This was eye-opening. It was inspiring, and I know it's going to help a lot of people out there. And for everyone listening, if this episode hit home for you, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because you never know whose life it might impact. Until next time, let's keep the conversations going.